Lucifer wanted more. Many people have asked themselves this question during difficult moments of faith. Why does he seem so obsessed with destroying us? The answer does not begin with an attack. It begins much earlier. It begins inside the heart of someone who once had everything. Before there was any war, any fall, any hell, there was only an extraordinary angel. He was not a demon created in darkness. He was light. He was beauty. He was the brightest among all heavenly beings. The prophet Isaiah describes this creature with an expression that has echoed throughout the centuries. Morning star, son of the dawn. An image of splendor, not horror. The problem was never his appearance, it was his desire. He looked at everything he already had and decided it was not enough. He wanted more position, more glory, more closeness to the very throne of God. And this is exactly where the story begins to make sense. Sin never begins with scarcity, it begins with comparison. Someone can have almost everything and still feel empty, simply because they decided to measure their life by what they lack. That is what happened with Lucifer. And that same misplaced desire opened the first crack in all of creation. But that desire did not remain just a passing thought. It kept growing. And what began as ambition transformed into something else. Pride changed everything. There is an important difference between wanting to grow and wanting to take someone else's place. Lucifer crossed that line. The prophet Ezekiel records the words that summarize this transition: "Your heart became proud because of your beauty." Notice that the fall did not begin with a battle, it began with a heart that changed direction. This reveals something deeply human as well. Every spiritual fall follows the same path. First, the heart moves away. Then the attitude confirms what had already happened inside. Lucifer did not fall because he was pushed. He fell because he silently decided that he deserved more than what God had given him. And pride has a dangerous characteristic. It never feels like pride. It feels like justice. That is how a glorious angel began to see himself as someone who had been treated unfairly for not being placed at the center of the universe. What makes this story even more remarkable is the environment where it happened. Heaven was not enough. If there was ever a perfect place to be satisfied, it would have been there. The constant presence of God. No pain, no scarcity, no injustice, and yet it was exactly in that environment that envy found room to grow. This destroys a common idea. The idea that dissatisfaction is born from circumstances. Lucifer proves the opposite. He was not in a bad place. He was in the best place possible. The problem was never the location. It was the heart. When desire becomes greater than gratitude, no paradise is enough. This truth crosses eternity and reaches us today. Because there are people surrounded by blessings who live completely unhappy lives. And there are people surrounded by scarcity who live with deep peace. The difference was never the place. It was always the relationship with what they had. And it was exactly this internal emptiness, this hunger that nothing could satisfy, that prepared the ground for the next chapter of this story. While all of this was happening in heaven, God was about to create something that would completely change the direction of the conflict. Humanity was chosen. Genesis describes this moment with a phrase that seems simple but carries enormous weight. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. No other creature received this privilege. Not the angels, not Lucifer despite all his beauty. Human beings were formed to reflect the very character of God, and more than that, they received authority to rule over the earth. Someone could even joke that if there was a position more desired in the universe, this would be it, because Lucifer, with all his greatness, never received this kind of relational closeness with the Creator. Angels serve, angels worship, but humanity was invited to walk alongside God as his children. This difference explains much of what we are about to discover in this video. Because when someone has already shown that they desire what does not belong to them, placing before them the creature that received exactly that place is like lighting a fuse. And this is where the final pieces begin to come together. The devil wanted your place. Everything we have seen so far points in one direction. Lucifer always desired more position, more glory, more closeness with God. And suddenly a fragile creature appears, formed from dust, receiving exactly what he always wanted for himself: identity as a child, a clear purpose, authority over creation, an eternal inheritance that was promised. It is not a coincidence that Satan's hatred toward humanity is so intense. He does not hate by accident. He hates because he sees in every human being a constant reminder of what he himself lost because of his own pride. Every person who lives in communion with God represents silently the victory of a plan that he will never be able to undo. It is not about you personally in the sense of rejecting your character. It is about what you represent. You carry the image that he lost. You occupy the position he desired. And that is exactly why the next part of this story becomes inevitable. If he desires the place humanity occupies, it was only a matter of time before he would try to take it directly from their hands. The garden changed everything. Eden was not just the setting of an isolated temptation, it was the first direct attack against the project that Satan despises the most. He had already lost his position in heaven. Now he saw before him the creature that had received exactly what he wanted for himself. And instead of attacking with force, he chose the same strategy that he had allowed into his own heart. Doubt. Did God really say? A simple question placed exactly where trust was supposed to exist. He did not offer power, he offered a distorted version of identity. He suggested that human beings could become like God without realizing that they had already been created in his image. The result is well known. Sin entered the world and perfect communion was broken. But notice something important. Satan did not win because he was stronger. He won because he was able to reproduce in humanity the same seed that had already destroyed him. Dissatisfaction, comparison, the desire to occupy a place that did not belong to him. But that victory would not last long, because God had already prepared a response that would completely change the direction of this war. Centuries passed until that answer became visible, and it arrived in a way that no one expected. The cross changed the war. If there's one moment when Satan probably believed he had achieved his greatest victory, it was this: an innocent man, condemned, humiliated, and crucified before crowds of people. At first glance, it looked like the end of everything. But the Apostle Paul reveals what was truly happening in that moment. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. What appeared to be defeat was actually the complete opposite. The death of Jesus did not strengthen Satan's control over humanity, it destroyed that control at its root. The separation caused in Eden was undone. And more than that, humanity's position became even greater than before. Now, it is not only about someone created in the image of God, it is about someone redeemed, adopted, and restored to a relationship that sin had interrupted. Every person who accepts this redemption becomes even more unreachable by the power that Satan once dreamed of exercising over creation. And this reality is exactly what explains his behavior until today. If defeat was already determined, why does he continue attacking with such intensity? Satan has already lost. Perhaps it is difficult to understand a creature that continues fighting even while knowing what the final outcome will be. But this is exactly what Scripture describes. The book of Revelation shows his reaction when facing defeat, knowing that his time is short. It is not the hope of victory that drives him, it is the fury of someone who has already lost everything he desired the most. His attacks are not born from a calculated strategy, but from the desperation of someone who knows he is losing. He can no longer regain his position in heaven. He can no longer stop the work of the cross. So all that remains is to try to drag as many people as possible into the same destruction that he chose for himself. This explains why the Bible describes him as a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. It is not the roar of someone who is confident. It is the roar of someone who knows he is losing and makes as much noise as possible before the end. And that is exactly why his target has changed. If he can no longer destroy the plan itself, he tries to prevent each person from reaching the part that belongs to them within it. The devil wants your future. Everything humanity received through redemption continues to be the greatest target of spiritual attacks. It is no longer about taking a cosmic position. It is about preventing, one life at a time, people from reaching what already belongs to them. Every doubt planted and every prolonged discouragement, every temptation disguised as a solution, all of it carries the same ancient purpose: to prevent someone from reaching the fullness of what God has prepared. But here is the detail that changes the way we see this battle. Every life that resists, that perseveres, that continues walking toward the promise represents another defeat for him. It is not only a personal victory, it is a reminder that what he wanted for himself and never had continues to be freely given to ordinary people every single day. The devil hates you. And with all of this, we finally arrive at the complete answer to the question that opened this video. Perhaps at some point of pain or difficulty, you have wondered if this hatred was personal, if there was something specifically wrong with you, but now you understand the real reason behind it. He does not hate you simply because you exist, nor only because of your mistakes or weaknesses. He hates what you represent. You carry the image that he lost. You receive the redemption that he will never be able to have. You are walking toward a glorious destiny that he desired for himself, but that his own rebellion made impossible. Every time Lucifer looks at a human being living in communion with God, he sees exactly what he lost forever. And that is why the hatred was never about who you are. It was always about what God has done for you and what he has reserved for your future. If this video helped you understand this spiritual battle more clearly, click subscribe and leave your like. See you in the next video.